I guess I'm going to share my story in my typical fashion of stream of conscious, as I've been doing for my last several videos. And I'm hoping that there are some lessons for you here, some inspiration for you to be gained. I've done a lot of rather crazy things over the last 10 years or so, both personally and health-wise and professionally. And yeah, I hope that you enjoy this. So I'm just going to get right into it. So growing up and through the very beginning of my 20s, I struggled a lot with my health and my relationship with myself and my relationship with food. They were very, very messy things. I had an eating disorder for a long time, and that consumed my life. It very much consumed my life. And around this time, about 10 years ago, I was living in another city and working at a cafe while going to graduate school. And I met a friend at this cafe who was a vegan, and I'd never heard of a vegan before. I never heard the term at all. I don't even know if I knew a vegetarian up until that point. It just wasn't the norm of the culture that I grew up in. So I met her and she introduced me to a plant-based diet, a vegan diet. And I was very interested because, again, like I said, I had a very challenging relationship with food, and which ultimately reflected a challenging relationship with myself, because food is always a symptom of something deeper inside of us. But I was on the search for finding something that would help me repair my relationship with food. And a plant-based diet really stood out to me. It sort of made a lot of sense. And so I was in her room one day and I saw on her bookshelf this book titled The 80-10-10 Diet. 80-10-10 standing for 80% carbohydrates, 10% protein, 10% fat. And it was a raw vegan philosophy. It was a raw vegan approach to a plant-based diet. So more specific, more narrow than just a broad plant-based diet. So I asked to borrow it and I went home and read it. And I was like, this makes so much sense. This makes so much sense. Just eating real, raw fruits and vegetables. That makes all the sense in the world. And so I started to sort of play with that, and I got really interested in it. And I would buy cases of fruit and just eat bananas for breakfast and mangoes for lunch, and sort of played around with that for a while still eating some of my old things, French fries and, whatever. In a few months later, I was studying abroad, and I was told while studying abroad not to drink the water that I drank because I was young and didn't think anything was going to happen. And in drinking that water, I got a parasite, a very severe parasitic infection that very quickly caused my body to break out in a full body rash, crazy bloating. I actually had a bulge in my abdomen where the parasite lived. Like, you could visibly see by looking at me where the parasite resided inside of me because it stuck out. It was the weirdest thing. It was the craziest thing. And I didn't know what it was initially. I didn't know I had a parasite. I just knew that all of a sudden, like overnight, my body felt very different. It was very different to exist in my body. The bloating and the rash were truly unbearable at some times. I would be in school. I was in grad school at the time, like I said, and I'd go into class or I'd go in to study, and sometimes I'd get up and turn around within 10 minutes and go home and run a bath, because being in the water was the only place I found any relief for my skin. It was just so unbearable. And as someone who suffered with eczema for many years, I was not unfamiliar with unbearable itching and skin issues, but this was next level. And so I was like, what is going on? And the friends I was living with at the time were like, you need to go to the doctor. Like, something's going on. You need to go to the doctor. And I was not a big fan of doctors long before I knew everything that I now know. And so I was reluctant, but eventually ended up in the emergency room and was telling them what my symptoms were. And they ran a bunch of tests and essentially told me that there was nothing wrong. There was nothing wrong whatsoever. And I was sort of felt that I was some silly young girl looking for attention or complaining about nonsense and wasting their time. And I felt very dismissed. And so I walked out of that hospital without any answers, feeling very dismissed over like these very real symptoms that I was experiencing, and told myself that was the end. That was the last time I would ever rely on a doctor or anyone outside of myself to take care of me. And I was going to learn what was going on in my body, and I was going to take care of what was going on in my body. And I was going to do that from this moment on until forever. And thus far, I have stuck to that commitment. So I went home, and I, like I said, had been dabbling with the raw food for a while, and sort of had this intuition, this sense that if I were to create an environment inside of my body that was so whole, so clean, so inhospitable to anything, a parasite, bacteria, anything that could be causing my symptoms, that my symptoms would have to go away. It would have to go away. It would have to resolve itself. And so I decided at that point that I was going all in on eating raw food. I was fully raw, only eating raw food, and I was going to heal. I just was going to heal. And so I did that, and I ate raw food and ate raw food and ate raw food over the course of about a year or so, and found some relief along the way, symptoms slowly getting better. At this point, I knew I had a parasite. I had figured it out, but nothing ever fully resolving. Well, by the end of that year, I had graduated from grad school, and I decided to make this journey of what was going on in my body, healing this parasite, my everything. So I left the city I was living in. I quit my job. I left my friends. I said goodbye to my parents, and I packed up a very small little backpack, and I flew over 3,000 miles away to live in a raw vegan community in Hawaii. Everyone thought I was crazy. And so while in this raw vegan community in Hawaii, my life looked completely different. I was surrounded with different people. I was in the sun. I was grounding every day. I was in the ocean. I was resting. I was picking my fruit directly off the tree right before I was eating it. And I felt inspired while there to do an only banana diet. Another thing that people thought I was crazy for. And so these people that I was living with advised me to, in order to heal my parasite, to eat papayas. I should eat more papayas, specifically the papaya seeds, because these are known to be anti-parasitic. And I understood that, and I had read that, and I knew that to be true. But I didn't like papayas at the time at all. I didn't like them at all. And everything inside of me was no, no, we don't want to eat papayas. I do not want to do that. But this was what I was being told by people who had healed lots of different things, who were much, much older than me and seemed to know what they were doing. But I trusted myself. I trusted myself with the desire that I had to eat bananas. And so I did that. I ate only bananas for 60 days and included a few supplements. I included a wormwood and black walnut supplement. These are anti-parasitic herbs in that time. And over the course of the 60 days, I started to feel better and better. I've been increasingly feeling better all this time, but I really started to feel better and better. And I actually started to feel a little bit worse at one point, and felt that the parasite was sort of getting agitated, like moving around. It's super weird, like moving around. You could see it like moving around. And I had this sense that it was getting agitated because it was running out of food. It was running out of stuff, old waste in my gut. It was running out of processed foods. It was running out of things that had long been living inside of me from a diet and life of lots of fast food and you know, standard American diet. And so I kept at it, and I kept at it, and I kept at it. And one night I woke up very early in the morning. It was pitch black. Again, I'm in the jungles of Hawaii. There's no lights. There's nothing other than the stars. And I felt sick. And so I got up out of my hut, and I ran outside, and I squatted, and I went number 2, and I came back inside and went back to bed. And in the morning, I woke up and knew instantaneously it was over. It was over. I felt like a brand new person. I knew I had purged the parasite the night before. And to this day, I feel a little bit of frustration that I wasn't awake enough or with it enough to look down and see this thing that had really taken over my life and my body for 15 months. It was until I finally purged it. But I didn't, and that was not meant to be. But I was so changed after that experience. So changed, not just physically, but spiritually, emotionally. My trust in myself and my body had grown 1,000,000% because I had done something that nobody thought I was going to do, right? You have a deadly parasite. You have all these terrible symptoms. I was laying in bed, resting for most of the day towards the end because I had no energy. I couldn't function like a normal person. And I just chose my way. I chose what I knew to be true somehow deep inside of me, that my body was perfectly designed to heal. It would always heal. And I just had to get out of the way. I had to remove not just the foods from my life that were causing misalignment, but I had to move physically to an environment that I found more peaceful, more safe, where I was able to rest and heal and get out of a situation back where I was living that stressed me out and that no longer felt aligned and true to who I was becoming. And so I purged my parasite, and my faith in myself and my body was forever changed. And then I moved back home and I started dating my now husband, Wes. And fast forward a year later, we decided that we were going to travel through South America. We were going to backpack through South America. And for the first part of our trip, we were going to stay in another raw vegan community, a raw vegan permaculture community in Ecuador known as Fruit Haven. This community is still there. The Hawaii community is no longer there. And so this was in 2019, and we were there. And shortly after arriving in Ecuador at this community, I got bit by something on my leg. I didn't feel the bite. I didn't even really have much of a mark, just a tiny little mark on my leg, but quickly lost all feeling in my thigh. It was my right thigh, the whole thigh, from my knee to my hip. I had no sensation whatsoever in my thigh. And I thought, oh, that's odd and probably not good, but I'm not going to the doctor. I'm not going to the hospital here in Ecuador. I'm just not going to do it. I'm just going to let my body resolve this. And it didn't. It didn't resolve it. It didn't resolve it for 4 months. It took 4 months for my body to resolve the numbness in my thigh. And by that point, I thought I was living the rest of my life without feeling in my thigh. I was fully prepared. I'm like, well, I guess this is my life now. I just don't have feeling in my thigh. But I was relaxed about it. I was chill about it. I just, like I said, after the experience I had with healing my body through the purging of the parasite, I just had increased my self-trust and my confidence, again, not just in my body, but in myself, in my knowing that I could trust myself and do what I felt was best, was so great that I was chill. I was chill in a situation that otherwise might have completely freaked me out or freaked another person out. But I was relaxed about it. And so that happened. And while in Ecuador, again, living in this permaculture farm, learning permaculture, eating amazing fruit from the land, being there with my boyfriend at the time, Wes, and meeting all these really cool travelers who were coming through. It was my dream. This is what I wanted to be doing. This was exactly where I wanted to be. And yet, at that time, I felt a great big gaping hole inside of me. And I felt quite empty and miserable. And I thought, why? Like, what is going on? I am doing everything I wanted to do. I'm exactly where I wanted to be. This is my dream. This is my dream life. I can't believe I get to be here. And so I started to sort of pray about that and reflect on that. And the answer that I received was just a one-word answer, and it was service. And I thought, okay, service. What am I? I'm living in the middle of the jungle. Like, I don't barely speak Spanish. There's nobody around. Like, I mean, nobody. There's not many people around because I'm living way out here. How am I supposed to serve people? What am I supposed to do? And so I started to pray on that and reflect on that. How am I supposed to serve? How am I supposed to serve? And the one word answer that I got back the next time was Instagram. And I thought, Instagram, like what the heck? Like, I had an Instagram at the time, but I didn't post on it. I maybe had 100 or 2 followers. Like, it wasn't a big part of my life by any means. And quite frankly, I didn't want it to be a big part of my life. I mean, I was like the type to be living in the middle of nowhere in the Amazon jungle, or previously in the middle of nowhere on the edge of the big island of Hawaii, in these off-grid communities, just wanting to be immersed in nature and connected to the people around me. And I didn't use social media in any big way, and I didn't want to. And so I was like, I don't want to do Instagram. Like, no, thank you. So I kind of pushed that off, but continued to feel this gaping hole, this feeling that something was missing, and knew that it was service, had the intuitive understanding that of all the things that I'd learned over the last however many years, it was time for me to start sharing that with other people in order to help inspire, educate other people. But I did not like the answer of Instagram. And so I resisted and resisted and resisted for about 4 months until the beginning of 2020, when I threw my hands up in the air and said, okay, fine. Like, I guess I'll start posting on Instagram. And so I did. I made a commitment to myself that every single day, without fail, I would post a picture. It was really just pictures at that time, I think, on Instagram. We didn't do reels and videos. I'd post a picture on my feed and I'd share a couple stories. And I didn't know who I was talking to, the abyss. Like I said, I didn't really have anyone following me, but I just did what I felt I was told to do, what I was called to do. And so I started doing that. And that was that. And our plans for 2020, me and my husband's, were to continue to travel. We would go back home during the summer months and work and save money, and then travel during the winter. And so that was our plan. Well, of course, we all know the year 2020 was the year that things changed. And so our plans to travel internationally didn't work out. And so I thought, well, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to continue to travel. So instead of going outside the country or going all the way to Hawaii, maybe I'll see this country that I live in right here. And so I started praying about that. How am I going to do that? What am I going to do? And the answer that I got this time was buy an RV. And I thought, I don't want an RV. I never camped once in my entire life. If you know my mom, you know she is not a camper. She is a take me to the nicest hotel with the nicest bathroom and the best hair dryer around. And that is my mom. And my dad's not that much that way, but close enough. And so I had never camped. I had never RV'd. I'd never done any of that. But I felt the call to buy an RV. And if you're not catching on to the theme at this point, I do the things that I feel called to do. Sometimes I call them nags, right? We often feel this sense of, I want to do this thing, or I feel called or led to do this thing. But our logical minds think, like, what? Like, that's crazy. Like, everyone else is telling me something different, or that doesn't make any sense, or I don't even want to do that, or what could that possibly lead to? Like, right? Like, why eat bananas when everyone's telling me that papayas are what you eat for parasites? Why buy an RV when you've never wanted an RV and you have no idea what to do with it or where to go? Why start posting on Instagram when you don't want to? And who are you talking to? And what is the point, right? Like, none of these things during the time of the nag or the call or the intuition, however you want to say it, made any sense to me whatsoever. None whatsoever. But I had practiced listening to myself. I practiced hearing those nags. I'd practiced hearing that small voice inside of me. and I'd practice listening. And at that point, the RV point, I knew that it was going to lead me to where I needed to be. It was going to lead me to the next thing, because again, my plans were undone. I was not going to be traveling abroad in 2020. And so I didn't know what to do. And so I guess I was going to trust the RV was going to take me to it. And so we bought the RV and we set out in the RV in the summer of 2020 with truly no idea where we were going. Wes and I did this together, where we were going or what we were doing. And so here we were, just traveling around. And after a few weeks, we found ourselves on the beach in Virginia. And I was laying on the beach and I felt another nag. I felt another intuitive push. And this time it was to post a story about Jesse Itzler. So if you're unfamiliar with Jesse Itzler, he's an amazing person, and I highly recommend you go follow him, Jesse Itzler, Itzler, on Instagram. He's married to Sarah Blakely, who was the creator of Spanx. A lot of women are familiar with that reference, but Jesse's amazing in his own right, as is Sarah. And so I was laying on the beach, just chilling, no direction in life other than being in an RV. And I felt this nudge to write an Instagram story about Jesse Itzler. And again, what the heck? Like, why do this? Like, what is the point? What does it matter? Like, why say anything? And so I kind of like fought myself for a while. I'm laying here, I'm like trying to relax in the sun, and I couldn't get it out of my head. And so again, I knew to listen to this, despite how bizarre it seemed or pointless. I listened. And so I pulled out my phone and I wrote a very, very simple story sharing about Jesse and just sort of saying, hey, followers. I had acquired about 7,000 or 8,000 followers at this point between January and June of 2020, and was just sort of letting everyone know there's this person that I follow. His name is Jesse Itzler, and I really look up to him. And I look up to him for these reasons. I look up to him because I feel he's successful in a very well-rounded, holistic sense, right? Like, in my experience, a lot of people are successful in one, maybe two areas of life, right? They're very successful business person, or they're super fit athlete. But in the process of some of these things, other really important areas of life sort of fall to the back burner. And I continue to strive to be a person who is well-rounded in her success, right? I strive to be a really great wife and a really great mother. And I strive to take care of my health and myself. And I strive to take care of my fitness, which is something I can always be working on a little bit more. And I work to be great at business and my career and sharing my message like I'm doing right here. And all of the buckets that I think matter most in life, I strive to be good at without neglecting any of them. And so this is something I felt Jesse Itzler embodied really, really well. And if anybody cared to know about him or follow him, there you go. Post. That was it. Went back to laying on the beach. Within a couple hours, I got a DM from Jesse Itzler, who messaged me to ask if I would come be his raw vegan private chef. I was not a chef. I had never worked professionally as a chef in any capacity. What? You know, this person, I don't tend to look up to a lot of people, like really look up to a lot of people. Jesse Itzler is one person that I very much look up to and have for many years now. And so this was crazy to me. He was asking me to drive down to his home in Atlanta and be his private chef. And I sat there and I thought, this is unbelievable, because had I not listened to the nudge, the nag, the intuition that I felt almost 1 year ago at this point, to start an Instagram account and to start posting my food pictures and to start posting my journey, Jesse Itzler would have never seen my Instagram that had now acquired, like I said, how many followers? 7,000-ish followers by that point, 8,000 followers, and seeing that I made beautiful raw vegan food and that some people followed me and thought that it was interesting or valuable, and invited me to come be his chef. I would have never had that opportunity ever if I didn't start that daily posting on Instagram. And I thought, this is crazy. Well, of course I'm going to go. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I mean, I know how to make good food for myself, but I don't know how to be a professional chef. But who says no to an opportunity like this? And so my husband and I packed up the RV and we drove from Virginia to Atlanta and proceeded to live in his driveway in our 1995 little beat up RV and be his chef for, I was his traveling chef for about a month. I was a chef to billionaires at this point. This was unbelievable. And they posted about me. Jesse and Sarah sort of posted about me, and I got a lot more attention. And other people from that point invited me to come be their private chef. Other really successful business people, entrepreneurs, and just families, regular families who didn't have crazy life stories in the same way. And that's what I did for about the next year. I travel around in my RV, just people DMing me saying, will you come be my private chef? And I did. I went to Houston, and I went to Dallas, and I went to Orlando, and I went to Baltimore, and gosh, a bunch of places that I traveled to over the course of the year in my RV. And I would live in my RV in their driveway and teach them how to make raw vegan food, or give them a temporary experience of what it would be like to eat a raw vegan diet. And that was that. That's what I did. And it was crazy. It was crazy, and it was amazing, and it was wonderful. And then eventually it just sort of had its time, and it no longer became something that I felt fully excited to do, the full-time travel. And so I sort of grounded myself. And so I grounded myself back in Pennsylvania and got married, and continued to share on Instagram, and continued to evolve the way that I worked and helped people. And I started creating ebooks and courses, and I started doing coaching. I started hosting retreats, and all these things continued to work and build. And I don't say that as if everything has been all easy and blissful, because it has not. There have been, for sure, very many challenges along the way, and lots of faith and personal growth for me in that process. But I continued to just go, and here I am, continuing to go. And perhaps the final point, my story at this point in my life is in 2023, I found out I was pregnant with our first child. And I knew from the very beginning that this was an opportunity for me to learn deeper, greater trust in my body and what it was designed to do, what it was capable of doing. And so knew that I was going to navigate my pregnancy and my birth fully on my own, with the support of my husband. And so I did. And so I had this experience in 2023 of navigating a pregnancy and preparing for a free birth experience where I would give birth fully on my own, in my power, again, with my husband present, but no birth professionals. And so I did. And about a year ago now, in March of 2024, I birthed our beautiful baby Cedar, who is the beyond joy of my life. He's my everything. And was again changed in a big, beautiful way, in the knowledge and the awareness of what my body was capable of doing, and how my body was designed to be perfect. It's perfect. And so over the years, I have, there's so many other details, of course, that have happened over the course of all this time. But for the sake of time, I'm trying to not make it too long-winded. I had learned so much trust in myself through my body purging a parasite, and healing a numbness in my leg, and lots of other little things that I experienced over the years, and studying all along the way, and helping other people, and hearing other people's stories, and And studying German New Medicine and understanding the power of our mind is everything. Everything is our mind and our beliefs and expectations. And knowing that to expect health is to experience health, and to expect good things is to get good things. And so I did, and I do, and I continue to choose that. And yeah, like I said, there's so much more that could be said. And maybe if there's something that I missed or something you want me to dive deeper on, please tell me in the comments. I'll be happy to do so. But I think that I always like to leave everyone with a little something for you. And so my hope is that what you'll take from my experience that I've shared today is to be quiet with yourself, to pray or meditate or take a walk in nature, or do whatever works for you, and to pay attention to those nags, to pay attention to what it is you feel called to do, or something that just excites you, right? It doesn't have to be big or huge, like start an Instagram account or buy an RV or eat only bananas or, play Tetris, whatever the thing is. If you feel a calling to do it, if you feel this nag or nudge to do something, please, oh please, oh please, do it. Do it. No matter how seemingly absurd or off track it feels towards the goal that you have. Our intuition, I believe, our nags, are the way that God speaks to us. We often pray and ask for, at least I pray and ask for guidance or answers. I know other people do as well. And then I think we get the answers. We get the answers in our desires. We get the answers in what we want to do. I want to go swim with the dolphins. I want to go move to that new city. I want to go talk to that guy over there. But no, right? Like, that's impractical. That's too much money. That, I have to work. What are people going to think of me? That's not the way things are done, right? We logical mind ourselves into talking ourselves out of greatness, our greatness. And so no matter what it is right now for you that you here to do, please go do it, knowing that it is leading you to the lesson, the opportunity, the person, the experience that is for you right now. And that is leading you to the next opportunity or person or experience. It all compounds, right? I can look back on my life and see it all compound. And if I would have never taken the job at that cafe that I didn't mention, I was quite reluctant to take initially, I would have never met my friend who was plant-based and vegan and who would have introduced me to that. And I would have never, right? All of it all along the way. So listen to your intuition. Trust your intuition. It's the greatest thing that we have. We're such a mind, logical, study, listen to podcasts, read books society, and there's space for all of those things. I love to study and learn, but never at the expense of learning about me and listening to me and trusting me. And so whatever it is you feel called to do, please, oh please, oh please, go do it. It's going to be so epic, whatever comes of it. I'm so sure of it. So anyway, that's my story. This is quite long. I hope that you enjoyed it. Like I said, if you have any questions or thoughts or anything you want me to elaborate on or anything I missed, talking about my whole life story in 33 minutes over 10 years, which isn't very realistic, yeah, please let me know in the comments and I'll be happy to talk more about it. Anyway, okay. Bye, everybody.